Mike Collins just punched his ticket to one of the most expensive Senate races in the country, and on the same night, Georgia Republicans looked at Donald Trump's hand-picked candidate for governor and said, no thanks. That second part is the one you need to sit with, because in 2026, in a deep red primary, in a state Trump has obsessed over since 2020, his endorsement just lost a race he wanted to win. Let me walk you through what actually happened in Georgia, because the headline numbers only tell you half the story. On the surface, it looks clean. Republican voters picked Congressman Mike Collins to take on Democratic Senator John Ossoff this November. That's the marquee race. Ossoff is one of the most vulnerable Democrats in the Senate. Georgia is a true battleground, and whoever Republicans nominated was going to get a flood of national money behind them. Collins got the nod. Fine. But underneath that, in the open governor's race, something much stranger happened. Trump endorsed a candidate. Trump campaigned for that candidate. Trump put his name, his brand, and his political capital on the line. And Georgia Republicans, the same voters who handed him the state in 2024, looked at his pick and chose someone else. That's the buried story. That's the part that got skimmed over while everyone focused on the Senate matchup. So what's actually going on behind the scenes? Why would Republican primary voters in Georgia, of all places, tell the most powerful figure in their party that they'd rather go a different direction? Because this isn't just one race. This is a pattern that's been quietly building. And Georgia is where it cracked open in public. Think about the relationship between Trump and Georgia Republicans for a second. It is complicated. It has always been complicated. This is the state where Trump publicly feuded with his own party's governor. This is the state where his endorsed Senate candidate lost a winnable race in 2022. This is the state where the local Republican infrastructure has more than once gone its own way. And now, in 2026, with an open governor's seat on the table, that independent streak showed up again. Here's the question worth asking. Is Georgia an outlier, or is Georgia the early warning? Because if a Trump endorsement can't carry a Republican primary in Georgia, what does that mean for the rest of the map? What does it mean for House primaries and swingy districts? What does it mean for the Senate races in states where Trump is trying to clear the field? What does it mean for the 2028 conversation that's already starting to hum in the background? If this is rewiring how you think about the Republican primary map, hit subscribe, because we're going to be tracking exactly this story all cycle. Now let's talk about Mike Collins, because he's the other half of this night, and he matters more than you might think. Collins is a congressman. He's not a household name nationally, but he just won a Senate primary in a state that is going to be ground zero for control of the Senate. John Ossoff is the Democrat he's chasing. Ossoff won his seat in that wild 2021 Georgia runoff, the one that flipped the Senate. He's been in office one full term, and now he's defending that seat in a state that has trended right at the presidential level, but still has real Democratic muscle in the suburbs of Atlanta. So you've got Collins, fresh off a primary win, walking into a general election that will probably cost north of $100 million by the time it's done. You've got Ossoff, an incumbent who knows how to win close ones. And you've got a state that has decided exactly nothing about which way it wants to go. But here's the part nobody saw coming when this primary cycle started. The governor's race was supposed to be the easy one, an open seat, a popular outgoing Republican governor, a Trump endorsement to clear the field. And instead, Republican voters threw a curveball. Why? What were they actually voting on? A few possibilities, and I want you to hold all of them at once because the truth is probably a blend. Possibility 1. Georgia Republicans have been burned before. They watched Trump-endorsed candidates lose winnable general elections. They watched the state slip in 2020. They watched Senate seats flip. And some of them, quietly in the privacy of a voting booth, decided that loyalty to a brand is not the same thing as winning in November. They want to hold the governor's mansion. They pick the candidate they think can do it, even if that candidate wasn't the one Trump wanted. Possibility 2. The local political machinery in Georgia matters more than national observers give it credit for. Governors, lieutenant governors, secretaries of state, county chairs, they all have networks, they all have favors, they all have voters who trust them. And when that local machinery lines up behind one candidate and Trump endorses another, the local machinery doesn't always lose. Possibility 3, and this is the one that should make every political strategist in Washington sit up. The Trump endorsement might be hitting a ceiling, not collapsing, not failing everywhere, but hitting a ceiling in certain kinds of races, in certain kinds of states, with certain kinds of voters, open primaries with multiple credible candidates, states with strong existing Republican brands, races where voters are thinking about November, not just about loyalty. If that's what's happening, this Georgia result is not a one-off, it's a signal. And signals like this don't stay local for long. Now here's where it gets interesting for the general election. Mike Collins now has to run a Senate campaign in a state where, on the same night he won, the top of the ticket just rejected the most powerful figure in his party's preferred candidate. How does Collins position himself? Does he run as a Trump ally, leaning into the brand that still moves a lot of Republican voters, or does he run as his own guy, the way Georgia's outgoing Republican governor did, building a coalition that includes Trump voters but isn't defined by them? That choice is going to shape the race. And John Ossoff is going to be watching it carefully because the way Collins answers that question determines exactly how Ossoff attacks him. If Collins hugs Trump tight, Ossoff runs the playbook from 2020 and 2021, painting Collins as too extreme for a state that is genuinely purple in the suburbs. If Collins distances, Ossoff calls him a fraud, says he can't be trusted, says he doesn't even believe what his own party believes. There is no clean answer, there is only the choice, and the choice is going to be made under enormous pressure because every Republican strategist in the country is going to have an opinion about it. Here's a question to chew on. What does it say about the state of the Republican Party that the most interesting story coming out of a Georgia primary night isn't who won, but who lost? Trump didn't lose a race he was on the ballot for. He lost a race he tried to influence. And there's a real difference between those two things, and it's a difference that's going to define a lot of primaries between now and the convention. Because every politician watching Georgia tonight is doing the same math. How safe is it to defy a Trump endorsement? How risky is it to accept one in a competitive primary? How do you read the room in your own state? Georgia just gave them a data point. And data points like this travel fast. The governor's race will now be a real race, with a Republican nominee who didn't have Trump's blessing trying to hold the seat against whoever Democrats put up. The Senate race will be a marquee national contest, with Collins trying to take down Ossoff in a state that has gotten very good at producing photo finishes. And the buried story, the one that didn't lead the coverage, is the one that might matter most in the long run. A Republican primary electorate in a state Trump considers his looked at his pick and said, "We'll take it from here." That's not a rebellion, it's not a rejection, it's something quieter and in some ways more interesting. It's independence. And independence inside a party is the thing that reshapes a party. Watch this space, because Georgia tends to be where the next chapter of American politics gets drafted first. If you found that useful, like the video and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.